We're joined by Peter Churchouse, Director of Lim Advisors, now live in our Hong Kong studios. Peter, always nice to have your thoughts on the show. Even if and when this Link REIT IPO does proceed, to what extent do you expect there now to be a political premium attached to Hong Kong IPOs?
I don't think it's going to be too severe, to be honest. We've seen these sorts of things before. My sense here is that the IPOs generally in Hong Kong have been reasonably well received recently, but they haven't had a huge pickup in the aftermarket. They've only been running up about 10%, 15% or so. So my sense here is that the market will take this fairly well, but I suspect that we're not going to see a huge run-up in the stock immediately post-listing.
Peter, Philip back in Hong Kong here. Mandy mentioned this a bit earlier. Let me touch on this a little bit more. The appeals is a possibility here for this particular REIT. Now, from what I understand is that the defendants, the plaintiffs here, have 28 days to appeal this decision that was announced yesterday. A written report will be out later on today. Perhaps an appeal might come about in the next several days. What's the likelihood of an appeal realistically in this case?
I think that the appeal prospects are actually quite limited. If we look at the original litigants in the first place was Albert Cheng, a local legislator. He has already come out and said that he is not going to fund an appeal. And the two original litigants were a couple of senior citizens on welfare benefit. So they're hardly likely to be able to come up with this unless we get some agitator in the community who wants to come forward and take this on. I think the chances of an appeal are quite slight. Bear in mind you have something like 520,000 people in Hong Kong who have invested or put up for investment in this investment. So I think you're really on a political hiding to nothing to go out really and run the risk of offending 500,000 Hong Kong citizens. So I think the chances of an appeal are relatively slight, but you never know with the law. You can never discount it.
Absolutely. Peter, obviously it's quite a time for IPOs in Hong Kong at the moment, with Air China debuting today. I believe at the debut the shares were up about 6%, and we'll get a check on the board at what they're doing as we speak. With oil prices obviously now having retreated quite a bit from their record highs above $55 a barrel back in October, and also China just growing wealthier and becoming more attracted to air travel, how good a sector is this to be in?
Well, when I look at airline stocks, I'm always reminded of a remark by Richard Branson sometime after he started Virgin Atlantic, when he was interviewed by the press, and the press said to him, well, Mr. Branson, how does one go about becoming a millionaire? And he said, well, start out with $1 billion and buy an airline. And I think that's a particularly interesting remark. The airline business has not proven to be a great business or a great stock investment around the world in recent years. We think of China Eastern and China Southern, the two already listed airline stocks in China. These stocks are below their issue price when they were issued in 96 and 97. They have significantly underperformed the markets. I have a natural tendency of concern about airline stocks generally for very good reasons. Their demand is very volatile, their cost structure is very volatile vis-a-vis oil prices, and in a market like China, you've got a very crowded aviation market. You've got also a lot of regulatory risk as well. So I'm just a little nervous about this sector generally.
Peter, with that said, Philip back here in Hong Kong, Cathay Pacific has a very large investment into Air China. Cathay Pacific is a very successful airline. Does that change your opinion at all on the outlook for Air China?
Well, if you think about Cathay Pacific, yes, it is. It's one of the best airlines in the world, and many people would argue possibly the best airline in the world. I think, quite frankly, strategically, Cathay really does need a place in China. It's been very difficult for it to get that so far because of the rights and the regulations. So I think very clearly this is a strategic investment and probably isn't a bad thing for Cathay going forward over the long term. But if you think about Cathay's share price over the last 6 or 7 years, it's traded within a very tight range. It has not given you long-term upside and good shareholder performance over the last 7 or 8 years. So my comment on airlines, I think, still holds.
Peter, always excellent to hear your thoughts. Thanks very much for your time. Peter Churchouse, Director of Lim Advisors, live from our Hong Kong studios.